Okay, so we'll get started now. Hi everyone, and welcome, and thank you for joining today's question and answer session for the Afri-Plastics Challenge Strand 1, also called Accelerating Growth. My name is Lauren Belfay, and I'm an assistant program manager for the challenge. We're really happy to be here and to support you all ahead of the deadline for submission on the 15th. So before I introduce my colleagues that are here with me, I'd like to start off by saying that this webinar will be taking place in English only today, and it will also be recorded. So for anyone that's unable to join, we'll be just posting it on our website after the webinar. Anyone who would like to send questions in French, you are more than welcome to do that. We will record them and provide answers in French after the webinar. Okay, so I'd like to welcome my two colleagues, Janet Southern McCormick and Nassine Watson. Janet, did you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi everyone. Just to echo Lauren's opening message to say welcome to this webinar. Really excited to have all of you on the line. My name's Janet Southern McCormick. I am program lead for the Afri-Plastics Challenge and very excited to be answering all your questions today. So looking forward to seeing them come through.
And I'm Nassine Watson, an assistant program manager at Nested Challenges. Just to echo what everyone said, welcome to the webinar. Really excited to get started and to hear what questions you have.
And also on the line, we have my colleague, Gabriela Gisoy. And Gabriela, did you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I am Gabriela, Program Coordinator for the Afri-Plastics Challenge. If you have any questions, do put them in the chat and we'll get around to answering them.
Okay, great, thank you. So before we kind of get into the meat of the session, I appreciate that some of you who might be new to the challenge and are kind of keen to find out a little bit more. So just to provide a bit more context, the Afri-Plastics Challenge is a prize-funded, it's funded by the Government of Canada, but designed in collaboration with us, Nested Challenges. It's an element of the $100 million marine litter mitigation fund that was announced by the Canadian Prime Minister at the G7 Leader Summit a few years ago. So the challenge aims to reduce marine plastics in sub-Saharan Africa by developing and scaling innovative solutions to plastic mismanagement. It involves a public competition that will reward the best solutions to address marine plastic litter and in a way that promotes gender equality and empowerment of women and girls. So in July of 2021, we've launched the first of 3 strands. So the first strand, accelerating growth. So this strand, the objective of this strand is to scale existing solutions that improve plastic waste mismanagement. So we have 2 more strands that will be launched in the next couple of months. So I would encourage you all, if you're not eligible to participate in this strand, to follow our social media channels for announcements around the eligibility for the following 2 strands. Okay, so in terms of how this session will be run and structured, and I'll give you a few more instructions on how you can ask your questions. So the Q&A portion will last about 35 to 40 minutes. And to submit your questions, I can please ask you to use the Q&A function that's at the bottom of your screen. And if you would like to ask your questions live and you would like to speak, just raise your hand or use the raise hand function, and I will give you permission to ask your question. We also have some pre-submitted questions as well that will be answered today. But yeah, let's get started. Janet, Nassine, did you guys want to add anything before we start answering some questions? Perfect. So yeah, I invite you all to start submitting your questions in the Q&A feature below. But while we're waiting for those to come in, we're going to answer a few questions that we've received before the webinar. So one question that we received was, have you considered any potential negative well, one of the questions on our application forms is, have you considered any potential negative social impacts for your target user? And one of the question that was received is, what do we mean by target user in this question, and who does that refer to? Janet, did you want to take that one?
Sure. So when we're talking about target users, we are referring to those individuals that will be engaging with your tool, either as users, as customers, or as beneficiaries. So when you have your solution and you're kind of thinking about who is involved and who is participating in the implementation of your solution, you should be thinking about those various different types of people, those broad group of users, and whether there's any potential negative impact that there could be on them, either directly or indirectly.
Okay, great. Thank you, Janet. So we haven't received any questions in the Q&A feature yet, but I do encourage you all to submit those, and in the meantime, we'll answer some pre-submitted questions. Okay, so around eligibility for strand 1 of the challenge. One question is, I have an idea on tackling the reduction of plastic pollution. Can I participate? So the answer to this question is unfortunately, this strand of the challenge is only looking for already existing solutions. But however, I would encourage you all to kind of look at upcoming announcements for strand 2, also known as creating solutions, as you may be eligible to participate in that one. Another question is, can I enter on my own as an individual? Nassine, did you want to take this one?
Oh, sorry, just unmuting myself. You can enter on your own, but you need to be a registered entity in an African country. So if you aren't in Africa, you would need to have the lead partner that is registered in an African country. Yeah, I hope that answers the question. I don't know, Lauren or Janet, if you had anything else to add.
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you, Nassine. Okay. And another question is, what is the criteria for the prize? There are a few criteria for the prize, so I can just list those. So applicants that are wanting to participate for strand 1, accelerating growth, must be delivering an existing solution that tackles the reduction of plastic pollution. They must be a processor or a waste collector and deal with at least 10 tons of plastic waste per month, or no more than 200 tons of plastic waste per month. The delivery of the solution must be in sub-Saharan Africa, and applicants must be formally constituted as operating in sub-Saharan Africa, either as a registered business, a non-governmental organization, or a government agency. And as Nassine mentioned, they can be a single entity or an African partnership or an international partnerships as well. And the applicants must also own and have permission to use the intellectual property of their solution before applying to the challenge. Okay. And at what stage of development do you expect entries to be at upon application? Janet, did you want to answer this one?
Sure. So applicants must be delivering an existing solution, which we've already discussed and mentioned a few times here. So they must be delivering an existing solution that tackles the reduction of plastic pollution. As a processor or a waste collector, you must deal with at least 10 tons of plastic waste per month and no more than 200 tons of plastic waste a month, as Lauren just mentioned in relation to the eligibility criteria. And then in addition, the anticipated growth of the solution will be assessed in proportion to the starting point of the amount of plastic waste being collected or processed per month. So hopefully that answers that question.
Great, thank you. are there, and then just moving on to kind of more specific questions around our application form. Is there any way that we can accommodate Nesta challenges, can accommodate reasonable adjustments to support people to enter? And the question is, yes, there are ways that we can support you in applying for the challenge. So we would ask that if you do need support, to please contact Afri-Plastics at challenges.org. And we're happy to explore different options to enable you to take part. But unfortunately, no time extensions will be possible beyond September 15th deadline. Another question we received is the entry to the competition confidential? And entries to the competition will be confidential. They will be shared with those involved in running the challenge and assessing the entries, including our delivery partners in the judging panel, but however, in confidence. Details of the entry will be considered as part of our ongoing evaluation activities and may form evidence for future policy developments within Nesta challenges. No evidence published following our evaluation will be attributable to any individual entries or entrants. If you're successful in being selected to participate in Strand 1 of the challenge or any of the strands within the challenge, one of the conditions for accepting support, both financial and non-financial, includes being able to publicize your initiative on Nesta Challenges platforms and our partners as well. And then just to build upon, we had another question around intellectual property rights of ideas. And just to build upon that criteria is, like I said, they must own or have written permission to use the intellectual property relevant to their entry. And all applicants need to demonstrate a willingness to share information about their solution for the purpose of the challenge. As part of challenge, Government of Canada, Nesta Challenge of the challenge, Government of Canada, Nesta Challenge, and other partners intend to carry out publicity activity as well as publish reports about the insights. So these activities that they won't kind of divulge any confidential intellectual property. Okay, so it looks like we did get a question in the Q&A feature. So please, when will the results of this call for application be known? Nassim, did you want to answer that one?
Yes. So it'll be around November. We'd say maybe beginning to middle of November, where we will announce the successful semi-finalists. And we will keep updating our website, our social media channels, and if you've entered, we'll have your email address. So we'll also send you an email directly, so you know whether you've been successful or unsuccessful.
Okay, great, thank you. So this is, I just want to remind people that you are welcome to either submit questions in the Q&A feature or ask your questions live. So just use the raise hand feature and I can give you access to ask your question. So we have a few more questions that were submitted before the webinar. So another question around assessment and judging. So what is the assessment process? What does it look like? And when does this take place? I know, Nassim, you mentioned a little bit around when it's taking place, but can you expand on what the assessment process looks like?
Sure. So after the deadline on the 15th of September, we're going to assess all of the entries against the eligibility criteria and the judging criteria through our qualified assessors and our independent judging panel. Following this, information will be provided to our independent judging panel, who will make a recommendation on the entries, who should receive funding and who should advance to the next stage of the challenge. And like we mentioned, by mid-November, this process should have come to an end and we should have informed all of these successful or unsuccessful entries.
Great, thank you. And another question that we received around the judging criteria. And Nassim, do you want to take this next one? What does the judging criteria look like?
Sure. So we have 5 main judging criteria. The first one is scale, and I think Lauren has mentioned this before. So this specific strand, you'll need to demonstrate that you can scale your solution. The other strands may not have this judging criteria, but for this strand specifically, this is quite an important judging criteria. The next is empowerment of women and girls. So this is something that's important to the entire program. You need to be able to demonstrate that your solution has an impact on women and girls and is able to empower them, either as users, as beneficiaries, as customers, as employees, or as leadership within your own company. Social impact as well, something that cuts across the entire program, and we're looking for solutions that are able to make a positive and meaningful difference in society. Environmental impact as well cuts across the whole program, and we're looking for solutions that would have a positive impact on the environment, mostly around the reduction of marine plastics, but other positive environmental impacts will be considered beneficial as well. And then finally, capability. We want to make sure that you have a team behind your proposal that is actually capable of implementing and scaling your solution. You will be provided with non-financial support, and by that I mean like training support once you enter the prize, but we need to be able to make sure that there is the potential in the team, that you have the time, you have the expertise and the ability to implement it. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, let's see what else questions we have. Okay, so let's go into questions around financial and non-financial support for Strand 1 of the challenge. So can you give us a breakdown of kind of the overall structure of Strand 1 for financial support? And that I think what they mean here is kind of this initial entry and some of when kind of a overview of when grants will be dispersed and throughout the length of the challenge over the next 2 years. Janet, did you want to answer that one?
Sure. So the initial entry period is, as everyone knows, happening at the moment. The application window is live with the deadline on the 15th of September, which is next Wednesday. And as Nassim mentioned a little bit earlier and described the kind of assessment and evaluation process, the semi-finalists will be selected by November, and then they will run through a phase that will last from November of this year to January of next year, at which point they'll be preparing a submission to the independent judging panel, who will then review those submissions and identify 15 finalists to take forward to the next stage, which will be from the end of January 2022 to the end of January 2023. So that's a 12-month period. So that's the breakdown of the structure. Lauren, do you want me to? Is it worth me jumping into the breakdown of the financial costs here, or should we hold it for a later question on that?
Yeah, I think it's appropriate. You can keep going and expand on that.
Okay, so then when we're looking at that semi-finalist stage, that first stage, 30 semi-finalists will each be provided with a £10,000 grant, in which they can use that to support the development of their work in that period. And then the 15 finalists who are successfully chosen to move forward to that final stage will be receiving a grant of £100,000 each to implement their scaling plans over the 12-month period that follows. At the end of this finalist stage, those 15 teams will be required to submit a detailed report against the results of their scaling plan and how they've implemented that over the previous 12 months. And together we'll be asking them to do things like a pitch video for the judges and essentially, information responding to the eligibility criteria. The judges will then select 3 winners, a kind of first place winner who will receive a prize of £1 million, a second prize winner who will win a prize of £750,000 and a third prize winner receiving £500,000. So I'll pause there.
That's great. Thank you, Janet. Okay. So one of the questions we received is what kind of non-financial support will we be providing for people for teams participating in the challenge? So just to say that there will be a variation of the type or the level of support we provide, and that will depend and cater to the levels of experience, the capabilities, and the needs of everyone applying for the challenge and participating. So we haven't confirmed exactly what the support could look like or will look like, but in terms of what could be included and what we're exploring, and that includes gender sensitivity training, one-to-one mentoring, technical assistance on the plastic value chain and the circular economy. We're also looking at some human-centered design, including stakeholder mapping and user testing support. We're also looking at impact and M&E training, branding, communications, leadership management, partnerships and collaborations, and business development, financial and legal support, and then finally some investment readiness. So those are the few topics that we're looking at in terms of non-financial support that we could be providing, but more information will be provided over the next couple of months once those are formalized. Let's see, it looks like we have a question in the Q&A feature. Can I apply if my company is currently enrolled in another accelerator program? I don't see an issue with that. I think that, yeah, I don't see an issue with that. Janet, Nassim, did you want to add anything to that?
Just to say that I think that's absolutely fine. I think one element that will be, I suppose, important for us to understand, it links back to the capability criterion from our eligibility set. So is there the capability and the capacity to really engage on the challenge prize? So it will be good it's really good to know that you're on another accelerator program. It doesn't count against you in any way, but it's helpful to understand from a capacity perspective what's within your gift, and just, yes, being able to understand capacity and bandwidth.
That's great, thank you. Okay, so yeah, I just wanted to looks like we got another question. What form does the technical support or consultancy take? Remote, online, or in-person workshops, or one-on-one support? Nassim, did you want to take this?
Yes, I guess by the technical support or consultancy, you're referring to the capacity building that will be provided, the training and that kind of support. So right now, we're planning for everything to be online, just because there's so much uncertainty with the coronavirus that right now all our plans are on. So we wouldn't expect you to need to travel in the near future, but we'll definitely keep you updated. Yeah, and then in terms of what kind of support, there'll definitely be workshops, like webinars, and then we're also looking to provide different kinds of one-to-one support. But as Lauren mentioned, we're still designing and putting all of this together. And once you enter, you'll get a package explaining what everything will look like. We will definitely try to take into consideration different accessibility needs people may have, like what your internet connection may be like, what kind of support you might need accessing things. So we will try to make it as accessible as possible. Janet, Lauren, did you have anything else to add?
Not on my end, no. Okay, great. So yeah, I just wanted to reiterate, you do have the option to submit your questions anonymously in the Q&A feature. But yeah, we're really here to address any questions you may have regarding your application, any concerns. If you're not sure about some of the questions that we have in our application form, we're really here today to kind of address those questions that you might have. So please do submit your questions, or ask any live if you want to speak on the webinar. So another question we got is it a must to fill in the survey in the application, and who exactly should fill in the survey? I think in this, you're talking about the demographic survey. If it is, I do believe it is a requirement. Nassine, do you know?
So the demographic survey is not, we would like you to fill it out, because that gives us a better idea of who our applicants are, but it's not 100% required. It's not mandatory. You're not going to be disqualified if you don't fill it out, although we would encourage you to do so, because it helps us understand who our entries are better. And it really doesn't take too much time. It's anonymous. Yeah, so it would help us a lot if you could fill it out.
And just to add that any information in that survey is not assessed by the assessors or the judges, so they don't see any of that information. They only see the information that relates to the questions about your solution. So you wouldn't, there would be no bias and no kind of linkage between those responses and the content of your solution.
And in terms of the second part of that question, who exactly should fill out the survey? It should be the lead, the applicant lead. So that could be the person who is leading your team and who will be leading your team through the implementation of the survey, of the response.
Great, thank you. Another question we received is, can we reach out to you with more questions after today's session? If so, how? Yes, of course, you can reach out to us at Afri-Plastics@challenges.org. The email is also on our website if you would like to contact us, but up until the application submission deadline, we'll be happy to answer any questions as much as we can before. Yeah, okay, great. I just would like to give another chance for everyone to submit any questions through the Q&A. So I will give you a few minutes to do that. Okay, so we received one question. We are currently working on a commune of the capital loan with the objective of replicating this in other communes. How much waste collected is needed to be eligible? So the minimum to be eligible for this challenge is 10 tons of plastic waste. So that's the minimum. And the maximum is 200. So that's how much you need to do.
And that's per month, just to be really clear, that's 10, a minimum of 10 and a maximum of 200 tons per month.
Thank you. So the next question is, hi, Oscar, from Pro Biodiversity Conservationists in Uganda, which is an NGO. We're looking at partnering with a recycling company registered in our country. Could this make us more suitable for the prize? We do welcome partnerships. So as long as the partnership together checks all of the boxes for the criteria, yes, we do we do welcome partnerships. Okay, so I'll just give a few more seconds to submit any questions. If you currently have an application in progress and you're stuck on a question, please do ask them today and we can answer any questions you have.
Just whilst people are perhaps formulating their questions in the Q&A function, just to underscore this to be really obvious, but we have, just to remind everyone, we've got our listed Q&As on our website, so it's definitely worth revisiting that page to kind of pick up on any basic questions. Anything from you know, the eligibility of your challenge, your application itself, as well as a little bit more insight into the structure and timeline of the prize, which we've addressed some of those questions today, but in case you know you need a bit of a reminder, there is a lot of information that's listed on that website.
And just to add on to that as well, we do have our applicant handbook that has all of the details around Strand 1 of the challenge. So I would really recommend that you read that, as well as the terms and conditions that are on our website. Yeah, please, if you could read through those before submitting your application, that would be great. Okay, so maybe while we're waiting for a few more questions to come in, it would be good to kind of go through some of the upcoming possible like Strand 1 milestones and some of the events that might be coming up over the next couple of months. So in November, we do plan to organize a digital intense activation workshop and have some really interesting speakers and activities for successful participants and innovators to participate in. So that will be in November 2021. And as you have read in our applicant handbook, we do plan to have a judges Q&A with the semi-finalists as well. So yes, lots of great, exciting events and chances to kind of participate and collaborate and meet other teams after the semi-finalists are announced. Okay, so please do send your questions, and we'll be happy to answer any of them. We'll give one last couple of minutes and give people a chance to submit their last questions. Okay. How many people can qualify to participate in a team? Janet, did you want to take this one?
Sure. There isn't really a limit in terms of the number of people to participate in a team. If you're talking about a partnership, again, there's no limit. I'd say, yeah, if you're a single entity and you're applying and it's just you on the team, that's absolutely fine. But again, just bear in mind that your application form is being assessed against the 5 criteria, including the one around capability. So we are quite keen on understanding your team and the resources that you have and how you're actually able to implement your solution. So whilst there isn't a limit, it's just worth bearing in mind that we are interested to know what the capability is on your team in order to be able to actually scale your solution. That's a good question. Thank you very much for asking it.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so just one last chance to submit any questions, but we haven't received any questions in the Q&A feature, and we've addressed all the questions submitted before the webinar. So I'd like to give everyone a few more minutes to submit their questions, and if we don't receive any more questions, we'll move forward to closing remarks. Okay, so one question we've received: based on the capacity matter, does it work against you if your team is currently small? Nassim, did you want to take this one?
Yeah, just to say that I don't think it'll work against you if your team is small. I think what would matter more is if you can demonstrate that your team has the right level of experience, the right amount of time to work on it. So the size of the team would only count against you if you're a small team, but you have like 10 other projects that you're working on. So if you're a smaller team, but you have more time, you have more skills, then that would outweigh the size of your team. Yes, don't worry too much about the size of your team, rather than really considering what it would take to implement your solution and how you can prove that your small team is capable of taking that on.
And I guess, oh, sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say, just to add on one other thing to that is, we're really interested also to understand if you do have a small team, but you recognize that you need to grow and there are areas that you need to expand, that's okay too, because we're not anticipating that you have all the answers or that, you know, you've got everything sorted. Otherwise, there'd be no point applying to the challenge prize. It's more around being able to understand that you understand where you might want to expand, develop, and grow in order to support the scaling of your solution.
Yeah. Okay, so we're getting a few more questions here right now. So we have a question around the prize award. So question regarding the prize award. So a finalist winner who will have won the semi-finalist prize grant, then the finalist prize award, and then the final winners award. Is that right? So I think if I understand your question correctly, it is the semi-finalist winners will be selected and they will win grants of 10,000. Sorry, so 30 semi-finalists will be selected to each receive 10,000. Following this, 15 of those semi-finalists will be selected to move forward to the finalist stage and will receive a grant of 100,000. And then at the end of the finalist stage, a winner will be selected out of or 3 winners will be selected out of the 15 finalists. Janet, Nasim, did you want to add anything? I hope that answers your question. It clarifies kind of who wins what. No, good? Yep. Okay, perfect. Another question we've received is, if my solution is currently in implementation and I have future plans, should I include that or wait till we discuss scaling the business? Janet, did you want to take that one?
Yeah, so in the, that's a good question. In the application form, you will see that there are a couple of questions that are kind of asking you a little bit about that, right? So what your solution is currently doing, but what your plans for scale are. So you'll be able to include some of that in the application form. And then the idea is that the successful semi-finalists will then work on developing and honing those scaling plans further during the semi-finalist phase before then moving on hopefully to the finalist stage where they'll be implementing those scaling plans. So definitely include your kind of ideas and your plans for the future, because you know that's the kind of core of what we're interested to understand.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so we received a question from Emmanuel. From SOFR Initiative in Nigeria. Sorry, apologies for coming in late, no problem. I would like to know a little bit more about the minimum plastic weight required for the application. So the minimum weight is 10 tons a month. If you have any more questions beyond this, the minimum of 10 tons a month, please do let us know. But yeah, at the moment, that is the minimum. Yeah, okay, so the last question. Given the focus on marine plastics, if I am based in land away from the coast, but I am recycling plastic, do I still meet the criteria? I think you must be kind of located in sub-Saharan Africa, in a country classified as sub-Saharan Africa, and your organization must be a registered entity. So it's a little bit hard to advise if I don't know the specifics, but you must be kind of a registered company in a country in sub-Saharan Africa to meet the criteria.
And I can jump in a bit more and just say, if you're land-based, sort of, inland basically, but you're still tackling the issue of plastic waste, you do meet the criteria. You don't have to be on the coast, because as Lauren said, we're looking at sub-Saharan Africa, and so obviously there are lots of landlocked countries, and we all know that obviously the plastic waste issue is not just focused on kind of coastal regions, but it also is an issue in terms of our river and river systems and lake systems. So that's why we're looking at marine plastic rather than ocean plastic. So you will meet the criteria from that perspective.
Okay, great. Okay, so we received another question. If an organization doesn't regularly collect 10 tons a month, but collects more than 120 tons a year, can they still apply? Miss and Janet, did you guys want to take this one?
That's a good question. So I guess if I can understand a little bit more, essentially it's around the 120 tons a month, if you average that out, would be meeting the threshold, but it's not necessarily the exact same amount every month. So there's a variation, if I can understand right. That's a really good question. I think I'll need to take that away and come back to you, everyone, with that. It's a very good question, because there isn't necessarily going to be exactly the same amount of plastic waste collected every single month. And if you drop beneath that 10-ton mark, does that exclude you? We'll take that away, and we'll include that as part of a follow-up communication with the answer to that. And then I guess I see from the same person there's a clarification around the bit about marine plastic. So I think that was in relation to the previous question that someone had asked as to what, they're inland, they're not on the coast, are they eligible to apply to the prize? Essentially, we're looking at the marine environment, not necessarily just the ocean environment. So therefore people don't need to be explicitly based on the coast. They can be based inland, because we're looking at plastic marine litter across the marine environment. So that includes rivers, lakes, as well as coastal areas.
And thank you, Ola, for your comment in the Q&A feature. I'm glad that we were able to answer some of your questions. Okay, great. So any last questions before we move on to closing remarks? Okay, if there are no other questions, I will pass over to Janet to say a few closing remarks and words.
Great, thanks, Lauren. First of all, just to say thank you to everyone on the line for joining this webinar. It's been really great to field your questions and to hear what's kind of going on in all of your minds. We will post a link to the recording of this webinar, as Lauren mentioned at the start of the call. And just as a reminder, if there are any other questions that spring to mind, you can always email us at Afri-Plastics@challenges.org. You can send us questions in both English and French, and we will respond to both. Any other questions, we will consolidate and share the responses on our website. So please keep your eyes peeled for updates to the FAQs, as well as where we post the the link to the recording. And then just a final reminder, I suppose, or emphasis that the deadline for Strand 1 is next Wednesday, or this coming Wednesday now, the 15th of September, 12 p.m. BST, that's 11 a.m. UTC, 12 WAT, 1 SAST, and 2 p.m. East Africa time. So make sure that you make the deadline, you submit your application, the portal will automatically stop working at that point. So we won't be able to accept any applications beyond that time. Don't leave it to the last minute. There are always challenges with technology. So that's my big piece of advice. Do not leave it till the last minute. But thank you very much. Really appreciate all of your time and look forward to hopefully hearing from some of you via your application forms.